and ending on time. If someone would get the door for me back there, they come in, they can come to the side. Again, we want to thank all of you for joining us today. We want to call this meeting to order, our hearing to order. I am excited for our committee, and we're glad to have our committee members who are here. This is our first hearing with Youth and Family Affairs. And I don't know about you, but I didn't sleep well last night. I was excited about being here and hearing the information that will be presented today. And I want to also thank those who are joining us online via Zoom and also with our live streaming services. We are going to discuss some important information today on fatherhood here in Mississippi. I would like to, first for housekeeping purposes, want to remind committee members and those who are visiting with us and joining us that we will adopt the same rules and decorum as we would in our committee meetings. I want to personally thank all of the committee members again who are here, who sacrificed their time. I do not take it lightly. I know that we have tons of things that we're doing and working on, but I'm grateful for those who are joining us via Zoom and also here in person. I also want to thank those who are in person, the Speaker's office. We have Taylor Spielman here. Wave your hand, Taylor, there. You know, I'm a good Baptist preacher, so I love protocol. All right. And thank you for being here. We've invited the governor's office. Mississippi Department of Human Service Director, Mr. Anderson, is here with us, and his legislative liaison, Mr. Alex Bucklew. We also have Ms. Denise Wesley with the Child Support Division here. She's joining us at the table. And we're glad to have Ms. Lisa Davis with Results Consulting, and our special guest with Maximus Incorporated. Thank you all for joining us today. And they will be introduced after this short video. And we want to show the first video at this time. Noah, please. Thank you. And while he's cueing that video, glad to have Chairman Blackwell with us from the Senate, my friend over there in the Senate, and also Ms. Jamie Raspberry with the as the Director of Policy and Strategic Partnerships. We thank you for being here. Whatever the first that we have on the low-income fathers choose to not care for their children financially, emotionally, or both. But what if these dads want to make them a choice? How can they turn things around? A local nonprofit is partnered with the Shelby County Juvenile Court of Health. It's called AFIRM, which stands for The Father's Involvement Really Matters. Our Stephen Pemberton is here with more on the impact the organization is having. Stephen.
Rachel, that's right. This spring program features classes on parenting and job training. I spent 4 months with many of these men. Not only the first time they're learning what being a father looks like, it's the first time that many of them are learning how to be emotionally vulnerable, how to open themselves up to their children. Jesse Davis was just 19 years old when he became a father. 10 years later, just welcomed his 7th child.
I just had my baby girl, and then she was 2 months. I want to be better.
Learning what it means to be a father, that's something he's had to do on his own.
My dad was at the house, so summertime I was with my father. I didn't think that I had to be there.
But except for providing for his children, Jesse did not know what breaking that cycle would look like until he came to AFIRM.
The students in there, black men, got took all the time, but being heard, I learned that it's okay to be a woman. It's okay to kiss each other.
A new initiative from Family Matters Inc. The program brings others to come alongside low-income fathers to help them develop healthy parenting skills, career building, managing child support, and just admitting they need help.
One of the hardest things, I guess, is better than something to know how, but also.
Family Matters Executive Director Carol Jackson says that equipping more fathers like this could have an immeasurable impact
that creates an insecurity and brings about a lot.
For Jeff, he says he's gone from feeling like he didn't deserve to be a father, to being one of his children and be proud of them.
Sometimes I was very, don't frankly, I was old, and I feel like I really broke the generational curse in my family because, I'm bad at more than just my present, my kids, some says right.
First closed session started in March. First class of fathers will graduate next week. The state is currently evaluating upon progress, potentially create fathers like that across Tennessee.
And so today, as we gather to examine the Fatherhood Initiative Program, I want to begin by just emphasizing a simple and yet profound truth. Every child deserves a relationship with both parents. Every child. They need the love and the guidance from both parents. The involvement of fathers in their lives of their children is not only beneficial, but it is very essential. And statistics will prove this to be a fact. The presence of the father offers stability and support and a foundation that nurtures children toward their full potential. And it is important to note that the issue of fatherlessness is not unique to any single community, any single race or socioeconomic group. This is an epidemic that impacts families across all backgrounds, Black, white, brown, rich, and poor alike. When fathers are absent, communities suffer. And research consistently shows that children without engaged fathers face greater risks, from educational struggles to increased likelihoods of poverty and behavioral challenges. This challenge is woven across the fabric of our society, and that is why we are here today. And at this time, I'd like to introduce for the record Mr. Robert Anderson, the Executive Director of Mississippi Department of Human Services, along with, and he will introduce his liaison there with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you mentioned earlier, just to my left is Denise Wesley.
Yes.
She is the director of our Division of Child Support Enforcement. Just behind me here is Wendy Shelton, who is our Deputy Executive Director for Age-Related Programs. Her title is called Age-Related Programs because she has Division of Aging, Division of Child Support Enforcement, and the Division of Juvenile Justice, or the Division of Youth Services, which handles the juvenile justice program across the state. And then to her left is Alex Bucklew, who is our legislative liaison, whose name is here on the name placard. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Mr. Chairman. I want to say just briefly, this idea of families without fathers is something that's really familiar to me. Those of you who've heard my story before know that my dad did what a lot of dads do. He went off and left our family when I was about 10 years old. And we didn't really see anything of him for the next 6 or 7 years. I think he came back when I was a sophomore or junior in high school. And so he really was not around during the formative years for me or my 2 older sisters and my 3 younger brothers at that time. And it did make an impact. My mom did a great job of keeping our family together, but I can say for my oldest younger brother, the one just below me, it had a profound lifelong impact on him, not having a father in the home during those 6 or 7 years that are so crucial. So this fatherhood initiative that I'm going to talk a few minutes about is our latest effort at trying to connect dads with their families, because as you've said already, the impact of a father involved in a child's life, even if he's not in the same home with the child, is just remarkably there's a different experience for every child who has the opportunity to have two parents involved in their development and in their lives, and just being in the space with them and letting them know that they're not, walking through life alone. So, got just a few slides, and once I get through those, I'm happy to either then or at your direction later answer some questions. See if we can get this slide presentation going. So, yeah, we have just begun a fatherhood initiative. We've been talking about getting a fatherhood initiative going for a while. As you may or may not know, our child support division has a federal oversight agency, the Office of Child Support Services. And one of the things we have learned is, and one of the things I've learned in the 4.5+ years I've been executive director is, if we have a federal oversight partner, we really can't do a whole lot until they come alongside us and agree to move forward in the same direction. So our fatherhood initiative, the primary purpose of that initiative is to increase the financial stability of families by helping non-custodial parents. And I think you will not be surprised when I say that it's essentially 90% of our non-custodial, maybe larger than that, Denise, but non-custodial parents are dads. Which means that 90% of our custodial parents obviously are moms. Well, our fatherhood initiative is intended to increase the financial stability of families by helping those non-custodial parents build their job skills, gain employment, improve their wages, and meet their child support obligations. And those non-custodial parents who are referred to this program are connected to supports designed to help them do that, to find work and to begin making consistent child support payments. Currently, this is a pilot project. We're in the process of expanding it to the entire state. The active locations for our fatherhood initiative right now are Harrison County, Lee County, Madison County, and Washington counties, and then some of the adjacent counties. We've gotten some referrals from those adjacent counties as well. And the target population simply described as those non-custodial parents who have an open child support case. Title 4D is the federal statutory basis for our child support program. So those who have an open child support case who, one, don't have an income withholding order. Now, the main reason they don't have an income withholding order is because they don't have a job. Because one of the first things we do when we, first thing we check regarding non-custodial parents is their employment status. If we find an employer, then we generate an income withholding order, which you would think of as a garnishment order, basically, to withhold that child support payment from their paycheck. They've not made a payment in at least 3 consecutive months, and they don't have a commercial driver's license. We are able to do driver's license suspensions, but for this fatherhood initiative, we are not involving any non-custodial parents who have a commercial driver's license. Okay, where do we get these cases from? Well, they can come to us in a couple of paths. One, they're reviewed for possible contempt filings, and they can be referred to the Fatherhood Initiative program by our child support vendor. Those of you who are not familiar with who that is, that's Young Williams. We've been partnering with them statewide to help run our child support enforcement program for a number of years. Cases are eligible for contempt filings if there is an arrearage and it has persisted for a period of time. So cases where there's a potential contempt filing, and then the non-custodial parents who receive a 90-day notice that their driver's license is about to be suspended. for non-payment of child support. We encourage them to self-refer into this fatherhood initiative so we can help them avoid having their driver's license revoked and help them find a job. To successfully complete our fatherhood initiative, we require three things. Basically, you got to stay in contact with us, maintain communication with our fatherhood initiative staff during your participation in the program, make an agreed child support payment within 60 days. And most importantly, what enables somebody to make a child support payment is finding a job, obtaining a job within 60 days. So not a lot of requirements. Sometimes it's tough to fulfill number 2 and number 3 because we've got to get somebody connected with a job so that they can begin to make those child support payments. What are the benefits? Well, one, obviously, all of us who like to, if we have a car and like to get in it and drive, you need a driver's license to do that legally. And most of us would prefer to avoid a driver's license suspension, or if our license has been suspended, we'd like to have it reinstated if the reason it was suspended was non-payment of child support. These dads, by and large, may or may not be very active in trying to find a job. They may just need some help connecting to potential jobs. And so the benefit of our Fatherhood Initiative program is getting help finding a job. We will place them with an employment specialist who works directly with them to identify what their skills are, what their interests are, and help them look for available jobs that address their skills and their interests. And when they complete participation in our program, they are eligible to receive expedited modification of their child support order. In other words, we will review their child support order, look at the amount, for example, that they're being required to pay, and if it's appropriate to adjust that based on their new employment, we'll adjust that, Denise, I believe, up or down, right? So it could go either direction. We could order, the modification could require them to pay more child support. It could require them to pay a little less child support. Partnerships. We're in the business of growing some more partnerships, but our primary partner right now is the Mississippi Department of Employment Security. As you might imagine, they refer participants to the WIN job centers around the state. Well, in the 4 counties right now where we're operating, soon to be around the state. But so that at those WIN job centers, those non-custodial parents can receive the kinds of services that the WIN job centers are there to provide. Job referrals, placement into jobs, job skills training, resume building, basically just job preparation and job application assistance for some folks who, like you heard on the video, some of these non-custodial dads are 19, 20, 22 years old. They don't have a lot of experience in the workforce, and they could benefit from working with an employment specialist to help them prepare a resume or help them even identify what are the kinds of jobs that you think you would be interested in, and let's see what we can find to get you into one of those jobs. Not a lot to tell you in terms of statistics just yet. This is a fairly new program for us. It's just a couple of months old. We just began the program back in July. We've had 42 non-custodial parents who were referred to the program during that 2-month period. 3 of those are currently enrolled. They're participating in the Fatherhood Initiative. And 12 of those are in the enrollment process. We're getting ready to connect them with a WIN job center and get them moving in the direction of trying to find a job. 26 of those, unfortunately, didn't enter the program. You know, we can't force them to enter the Fatherhood Initiative. We make it available to them as a resource. But if they choose to opt, not to be involved, we don't have any leverage over them, so to speak, in order to make them participate. We hope those numbers will turn in another direction as we spread this out, statewide. Just so you know where our referrals have come from so far, they've actually come from the, 3 or 4 counties, Washington, Hines, and Harrison, and then from, several other counties, close by to Hines, Washington, Harrison. I assume we got some Madison County ones. The problem we have in Madison County, we recently learned the Wynn Job Center is not going to continue to be open in Madison County, and that's a problem. That's who we were looking to be our partner, to be our resource. And, I think the Department of Employment Security would tell you they've had some funding issues and they've had to close a number of Wynn Job Centers. Unfortunately, Madison County is one of those. So, I want you to, recognize also that almost half of these referrals, almost 43% of these, referrals have never made a child support payment. So, I mean, they're not currently supporting their children. We're trying to get them to the point where they will begin to be able to do that. The Fatherhood Initiative, as I mentioned to you, we work with a federal partner, the Office of Child Support Services, and it's not completely accurate to say approved. They've agreed with us. They've, given us authority. Well, they've told us we don't really need their authority. We have the ability to move forward and proceed with this program. We got a little, as often happens with our federal partners, we got conflicting signals early on in the year. Some of their staff told us we had to write a formal plan and send it through them to get it approved. Then once we sent a plan, the staff who reviewed it said, oh, well, you didn't really have to do this. You're authorized to go ahead and start your own program, which is what we did. One of the things we are needing to do is, because this is a new program, we're going to be hiring some additional staff. We have one dedicated person working on the Fatherhood Initiative right now, but we will be needing to hire some staff as we spread this program out across the whole state. The other expansion part of this that we will need to do is to hire a business development liaison. We want to work directly with businesses to develop further job opportunities for our participants. This is not something brand new to us. We do this in our TANF work program already, and we do it in our SNAP employment and training program. But we have found that unless there's a dedicated person whose assignment is solely to find employer partners, nothing really much is going to happen. So we will be hiring a business development liaison to basically go out there and beat the bushes for us, so to speak, Mr. Chairman, and find us employer partners who say, yeah, we have jobs. If you have employees, send them our way. So, and that's something we anticipate filling those positions over the next, well, I'll leave it at Denise's discretion, but over the next 2 to 3 months at the longest, we hope. So, one other thing I wanted to mention to you as we talk about the Fatherhood Initiative, we also have a companion program called the Mississippi Access and Visitation Program. You know, I think all of us recognize, just as a matter of common sense, that one of the great benefits, one of the hopes of getting fathers involved in paying child support is that they will want then to spend more time with their children. They want to get to know their children. They want to spend, you know, times with them, taking them maybe to, you know, sports events, taking them to their home just to get to know them better. And we have an access and visitation program that promotes the involvement of both parents in the lives of their children. And it's really designed to encourage, I have at different times, I've had different views about this idea of co-parenting, but the reality is if both parents don't live in the same home, then you have to reach a co-parenting arrangement where you're doing this together,
Right.
but it's in two different places. And our access and visitation program is designed to help folks sort that out and really negotiate sometimes what that looks like. So some of the services our access and visitation program provide include parent education, just, a lot of us, I remember when I first became a parent, it's not intuitive what it's like to be a parent. I mean, you see this little baby and it's like, what do I do now? Because there's no rule book, there's no instruction book that comes with that child. And so parenting education is something that all of us can benefit from. And so we offer that to folks who self-refer into our access and visitation program. We also offer them pro se paperwork, pro se meaning papers that they can file on their own. They can go to the court themselves and get visitation orders set up. Some of them may not have current visitation rights with their own children, and they need to get a court order to authorize visitation. We offer also some non-therapeutic counseling. Non-therapeutic meaning this is not for mental health issues for the parent. It's counseling about what it's like to be a parent and how to interact with your children. Not, I'm depressed and I need counseling. That's not the kind of counseling that we're offering. And then we offer development of parenting plans. How are we going to do this? Are you going to have the children on the weekend and I'm going to have them on the weekend? What's this going to look like? And because sometimes that gets a little complicated, we offer some mediation services because sometimes it's a good idea when we're trying to develop a parenting plan to maybe have somebody as an umpire, so to speak, to help us work through that and sort that out. So that is what I brought to talk with you about. But as I said, at your direction, Mr. Chairman, happy now or later to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director, for your presentation. On our agenda, we're scheduled to have questions after the next presentation, but I do have a few. I think this would be a good time now to open it up if the committee has some, and I have a few questions that has been sent to me by some who could not be here. But at this time, the committee may ask some questions if they have any to the director or anyone from his staff. Yes, sir, Representative.
I have a few, mostly for clarification purposes on some things, but all right. Well, you mentioned a couple of times about federal oversight.
If you could-
That has to do with Olivia Wise stuff.
Gentlemen, could you pull your mic up so we could, thank you.
Can you hear me? Am I on? Is that good?
Yes, sir.
The federal oversight, that has to do with the Olivia Y case,
No,
stem from
sir.
that?
No, we're not involved with Olivia Y at all because the Child Protection Service is now a separate agency unto itself. The federal oversight comes from, as my wife would say, they have a dollar involved, so they have a say, but actually they have a lot of dollars. We get 66% of our funding for our child support program comes from the Office of Child Support Services. The
And so-
state funds 34%, the feds fund 66%. And so that's where the oversight comes from.
So does CPS have a play in all this?
Well, CPS obviously has a play in the fatherhood issue completely. Yeah, and we have been in dialogue with them about the fact that we are pushing out this fatherhood initiative. So certainly to the extent that they can involve families, and we have all these privacy issues surrounding what the child welfare system can and can't tell us, but we will certainly and have been telling them that, you know, the Fatherhood Initiative is available to those who are in the child welfare system as well.
Yes. Sir. On one of your earlier slides that you had, the, one of the target population things was there's no income withholding order, but there is a child support order in place on these. Is that right? Just no
That's correct.
income withholding order.
There has
Right.
been probably a DNA test and a paternity establishment order, just not a withholding order.
Okay. On the program requirements, and I don't even know that you could do this legally, and you got to the visitation issue at the end. I'd made a note. What about visitation with a child? This is about obviously helping dads to pay child support,
Right.
but we also want that relationship with the child too. Is there any way to, gosh, I almost hate to use the word force, but strongly encourage visitation?
Well, we intend to braid the Fatherhood Initiative with the Access and Visitation Program and let every non-custodial parent who comes into the Fatherhood Initiative know that we have the Access and Visitation Program available to you. There's no charge to anybody. There's no, and it's a self-referral thing. So we encourage them to participate in the Access and Visitation Program if they enroll in the Fatherhood Initiative.
Let me ask you this. I know it's maybe a conflict of interest or almost, but because I know DHS is about going after the fathers for child support, and it's not about visitation. But could DHS, if both parents agree, because on one of those slides, you mentioned something about helping them with pro se documents to file for visitation. Could DHS facilitate that if both parents agree? Could they facilitate that on an agreed order? Is that something that DHS could do for the parents?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that we don't have any attorneys in our child support program who represent either of the parties. In other words, if they come to us with an agreed order, if they come to one of our regional attorneys through Young Williams and say, we've got an agreed order on visitation, I think we can certainly take it to the court and present it for entry by the court. But we meaning MDHS,
Right.
we don't represent either parent in that
Right.
equation.
Right.
I say that. We do represent the custodial parent in the sense that we are collecting the child support for their benefit.
Right. And that's why I mentioned the potential conflict of interest. But if both of them agreed, I was just wondering if you could help facilitate that.
It's been my experience that when that happens, that tends to be the prerogative of the chancellor. Some chancellors do that automatically, but it's not something that we do as an agency. Now, if the parents agree and they call the access and visitation, then we can give them the paperwork. But when in order for that to become a judicial order, that's something that chancellors do. And my understanding is that some of them in the past have done it as a matter of course on their own, if both parents agree on the spot. But that, of course, varies from chancellor to chancellor.
Have any other questions from the committee? Are you finished?
A couple more, I think, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit confused on the Father Initiative program versus the Affirm. Is that what we call it? Is Maximus? Okay, so you haven't, none of this involves Maximus right now?
No,
Is that right?
we don't currently have any relationship with Maximus in regard to our child support program. No.
Okay.
We've done a little homework looking at the Affirm program. It sounds like a really good program, but we haven't had any involvement with it. Although we may be having some conversations with Maximus going forward. And I certainly think that there's a possibility that we can braid some of our TANF funding with our child support funding to do some of the things that the firm program is doing. It's in agreement with what we're trying to do with our fatherhood initiative, and that is get dads involved in their children's lives and get dads involved in supporting their children.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Yes. Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I understand this is a pilot program. When do you anticipate rolling it out further?
Well, it has been a pilot program since July, but Denise's assignment right now is to move it out statewide. So we're in the process of doing that now. We have to escalate some pins in order to hire the positions that we need. As soon as we can push that through the state personnel board and she gets the 3 or 4 additional staff positions filled, then we'll be moving it out statewide. So it's a continuous process from today forward.
Right. And I know you mentioned you'll need additional funding. Do you have a number on that?
I'm sorry, a number.
Additional funding, you were saying that,
Well, I don't know that initially we need funding. We just need the authority to hire the positions. We're actually okay right now with funding.
okay, thank you.
Okay. And I do have a couple of questions. I want to follow up with one that Representative Blackwell addressed is in regards to the child support. Many of the calls that I've received from my office is that the non-custodial parent, the father, most times, is wanting to have a relationship. They don't have a problem with paying child support. They want to support their children. But they also want visitation rights. And they are having challenges, especially in the courts, because they have to go and spend money to have an attorney to represent them, to get their rights. Is there anything that the agency is doing to maybe address those issues? Because by and large, from what I've seen from those who have reached out to me, is that you do have parents who want to do right. They want to have a relationship with them. But it is kind of skewed toward the custodial parent.
Well, as I've stated before, we make the access and visitation program available because, as Mr. Anderson stated, we can't have our own attorneys to do that. That's
Okay.
not something that we're authorized to do.
Mhm.
But we can, through this program that we have, we can provide the pro se paperwork and explain the process, help the parents walk through it so that they can get their own visitation orders. And as I said before, while I think there are some chancellors that do on their own take it upon themselves to handle visitation at the same time that they do child support, that's actually the chancellor's prerogative.
Okay.
So so we're doing what we can within our bounds, and we try to do a good job of getting the word out about the access and visitation program. In fact, with every child support order that goes out, our access and visitation brochure goes out along with it.
Okay.
So that when they get the order, they get the brochure about the program and they can go ahead and call.
Okay. And one last one, and we'll wrap this one up if the committee doesn't have any more. Another issue that I've seen and that I have gotten numerous calls on is the vendor that the state is currently with. We know that child support is punitive, and there are not a lot of wraparound services, and it's good to see that you all have this access visitation program
Yes, sir.
that you all are trying to roll out. But when you have a vendor sometimes who's hard to reach, we may need to look at what are some guardrails in place, or if you all have a complaint line or someone that they can reach out to when they cannot reach out to the vendor that the state is currently contracting with.
So there is the child support hotline. We do have that, Mr. Anderson. So we do have the child support hotline. And so that is available, for our clients to call. And we also, we have a chat bot on the, NDHS website,
Yeah.
which, we actually do receive those if they go far enough, in the chat bot. We actually get those at state office
Okay,
and we respond to those.
okay,
We have also, taken some additional steps to, be out, to make ourselves available in the community more, just so they can see us and we can follow up on cases. Now that's time consuming, but we do it.
mhm,
Done, attendance at I think some community resource fairs and, things like that. Have our, constituent relations, person, from state office, to interact with people there. So we have, so the hotline is there. And we also get, we respond to constituent concerns from other avenues as well.
okay.
And we do our best to respond to it. So, and I don't know if the constituents are aware, but there's also a document upload on the MDHS website. So if they upload information about their case, on that website, then that's another way to let us know what's going on in their case. And we have, revamped our website to make it, very client friendly. So say, for example, if someone wants a modification on their child support, that form is actually available online. They
Okay.
can, we've got a description of it, they can fill it out and they can upload it. That's from both sides, if a custodial parent wants it or if a non-custodial parent wants it. And also, like say, for example, with the access and visitation program, they can apply for that online. We also have, I think, a sample visitation order that's already online. So we have done things, to give our clients, some agency, to be able to send us, to let us know what they want. Even license reinstatement, that paperwork, that's also available online, so they can make that request.
Okay. And so when they can't get to the, get a response from the vendor, you're gonna give us those hotline numbers and access to everything is online there, so I can point them in the right direction.
And we also have a consumer services presence at the agency, which is
Okay.
part of our Department of our Office of External Affairs. It's just, you can email just consumer.services@mdhs.ms.gov. And we have a staff of individuals who work every one of those constituent issues that come to that inbox. It's an inbox that's only for consumer service needs.
Okay,
And the website, we updated our website completely back in January.
mhm,
And when you go on it now, we did our best to make it as user friendly. It's also very much written, so many people contact us through their mobile phones. And our website is, designed so that you can access just as easily anything on the website on your phone that you could get on a laptop or a desktop computer. You go on, you simply type the county that you're in, and then there's a box that pops up that says, I need help with.
Mhm.
And if you need help with child support, then you just type in child support and it takes you right to that page and the hotline number appears at the bottom of the page. And, you can call the hotline immediately, or you can call consumer services and get the help, but we'll get you those numbers as well.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Ms. Wesley, for your presentation. This time we'll have Mr. Dwayne Brown with Maximus and Ms. Misha Henderson. You all feel free to either come forward or you can stay where you are, whichever is best for you since you got your set up there. And you all feel free to introduce yourselves and we'll move forward with your presentation. Thank you.
All right. It's at the top right there. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry that our PowerPoint was a little too large to get it up, so we've been trying to delete files and those decks, delete slides, but all is well. We will continue on. My name is Misha Henderson. I am a vice president with Maximus. I've been with Maximus for about 17 years. And I work in the Workforce Services Division, providing services to families in SNAP, TANF, unemployment insurance, fatherhood, childcare, and child support. So throughout my career, I'm an old caseworker, and throughout my career, I have provided and worked with families in all of those different safety net programs. I'll let Dwayne introduce himself, and then we'll get started with our presentation.
Thank you very much, Misha, and thank you very much, and thank you all very much for allowing us to be a part of this opportunity. Again, my name is Dwayne Brown. I am a project manager for Maximus in the a number of capacities, workforce services, child care, and child support. I've been with Maximus for 20 years, over 20 years actually, but most of my career has been in child support in a number of states, Florida, South Carolina, Maryland, and Atlanta. And so I'm pleased to be able to talk about specifically fatherhood as it relates to child support, because I think they are inextricably tied. I do think that there's an opportunity now for us to take a different look at how we make that connection and how we create the support services for those two entities. So I won't go too much further with that, but I am looking forward to having that conversation with you today.
Thank you, Dwayne. So he was able to get the PowerPoint up. So we're going to talk today about innovations in fatherhood. Maximus is a subcontractor for Families Matter for the Affirm program. We were instrumental in helping to get this program off the ground in terms of design, implementation, and providing actual services to fathers in Memphis. The Affirm program invests in Memphis fathers by helping to build their capacity around employment training, fatherhood training, where we provide 8 weeks of fatherhood training for fathers. So it's a full comprehensive fatherhood program. So what problem are we trying to solve with fatherhood, right? So we're trying to address the father's earning capacity. Many of the fathers that we serve are underemployed, undereducated. We're also trying to address the fear and the stigma associated with the child support system. We partner with child support, so we're not directly in the child support system. So we serve as sort of an advocate for the fathers and work with the fathers to try to get them connected back to the households and to build relationship with their mothers. One of the other problems is that the social safety net is not structured for fathers. Thus is why we created a comprehensive program to work with fathers. And one of the major things is that, fathers told us through a focus group that they felt like their value, that they were undervalued. They were really looked at as more of, when are you going to pay your support, when they actually want relationships with their families and with their children. So the Affirm program, our target population is men between the age of 18 to 40, men that are low income. So we work with men who are dead broke and not deadbeat dads. These fathers are maybe not working. They have a criminal background. They're justice involved individuals, but they have a child support order. And so we're going to try to work with them to help them increase their employment trajectory, get them economically stable so they can contribute consistently to the household for the family. So the value and vision proposition, our vision is to permanently transform the way low-income fathers are viewed and served by social safety net programs. And then the value proposition is to try to help build their capacity so we can reduce their dependency on different programs and to try to to help them just overcome many of the barriers that they face. We want to get them on an upward trajectory while also creating a social safety net savings and help with child support. Some of the anticipated outcomes of the program, we focus on helping the father increase his earning capacity through helping them get a good job and increase their skills and credentials. The other key component is 3 pillars to this, and the other pillar is increased capacity for healthy parenting and co-parenting. Now, we provide fathers an 8-week fatherhood training program. And that fatherhood training program, as you heard the individual on the video, they come in and sit in a cohort with our fatherhood trainers, and we talk to them about reconnecting with the family, how to communicate. Our program was just evaluated by the state, and one of the things that the valuation found was that fathers that are enrolled in our program are more apt to refer to their mothers as co-parents rather than baby mamas. We're teaching them to change the language. We're teaching them about how to communicate and better communicate, and also how to become more connected with the families. That third pillar is also critical, which is increased sustained child support payments. We know that when a father is paying his child support more consistently, when he's involved in his child's lives, that's better for the family. Oftentimes, mothers, I heard someone ask a question about the mothers can be gatekeepers to the children being away from their fathers, right? Because of what's happened in the relationship. So we try to train them on appropriate communication means and methodologies, right? How to talk to that mother, how to make sure they're staying connected with their children and being involved in their children's lives. Dwayne Brown actually came up with the title of this program, A Father's Involvement Really Matters, in the Affirm program. So we work together on that. So he's, as he said, you'll hear from him, but he's very invested in it. So next thing we want to talk about is addressing the fear of child support. As I said, many fathers are underground. How many, do anybody remember when they used to have fathers, they would trick you with a sting operation to come in and they'd say, we're giving you football tickets, but then there was the federal government there to arrest you. Well, a lot of our fathers still remember that. So there is a huge fear and stigma associated with the child support system. So we try to work with child support. We do work with child support, and we try to remove that stigma of with the fathers. We serve as the liaison organization in the middle, where we talk to the child support office about getting the father's child support right size. We educate the father on child support because we know how critical it is that they pay their child support. And we focus on accountability. Listen, we let the fathers know this is your role. You are accountable for providing support to your children. And when you provide that support, you make the family better. And so we talk to the fathers and train them on these practices and methodologies. One fact that I want to go over quickly is good co-parenting lowers the stress and improves children's growth. When moms support dad's involvement, moms and dads are closer co-parenting, co-parents. I'm sorry, guys, I'm trying to work 2 things here. All right. So look at this slide. Co-parenting is complicated, right? It's very complicated. If you are married and divorced, it's complicated. If you've never been married and you have a child, it's complicated. So we work with the fathers to teach them how to be a good co-parent. This is a co-parenting agreement example that we have the parents to sit down and share. One quick anecdote is, while we had one family sitting down doing this, their 13-year-old daughter said, hey, I know the 2 of you. I want to be a part of that co-parenting session. I want to get my views heard. And this is the way I want to be a co-parented. And so through the mediation process, we allowed the daughter to come in and to work with the family to be a part of having her co-parenting agreement signed. So some of our program outcomes. This program has been in effect for a little over a year and a half. We have enrolled more than 670 fathers. And this is just in Memphis. This isn't statewide. This is just in Memphis, Tennessee. And if you know anything about child support, you know Memphis, Tennessee has one of the largest child support caseloads in the country. So 58% of the fathers have graduated from our fatherhood training program. 31% have signed a co-parent agreement. 19% have secured jobs or higher wages. 32% have had their child support orders right-sized. And that's us serving as a liaison to work with child support to say this father's child support order needs to be reviewed. I'm going to go over to the father side. Some of the things that we're learning as part of just best practices and lessons learned while we're doing the program is dads said to us, we want to feel heard. Dads know they need the services, but don't know where to go for help. So we heard about, you know, some of the programs that the child support offices, you know, offer. And I was just in Illinois last week talking with that group. And it isn't, you know, we have to make sure that the fathers know about all of the different services that are available. And this is one way we help. We partner with them to make sure that we're educating the fathers on that. I won't read through them all, but understanding how services impact the understanding of men and have them themselves as fathers. And again, skeptical about the intentions of the program, very distrustful of the child support system. So it's one of the things that we partner with child support to try and make sure that we do. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne Brown.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Misha. And again, I want to take this presentation, but also want to treat it like a conversation. When I first opened, I opened with who I am at Maximus. But really what I want to converse from a standpoint of who I am as a person. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm a youth sports coach. And I say that because that has allowed me to come in contact with young men on a regular basis. And I see a distinct difference between those young men who don't have a father in their life, those who have a father in their life, and those who have a father in the home. And that's not a value judgment, but there is a distinct difference in terms of that child's overall well-being. And of course, it would be very optimal if we're able to move more fathers in the home. But minus that, how do we bring them into that child or children's lives? And so when Misha years ago asked me to come up with a name for the program, I thought a lot about it. And even though the acronym, A Father's Involvement Really Matters, it may be a nice, catchy phrase, but it's really the word affirm that I was really focused on. And that's really what men are looking for, is to be affirmed in that child's life, right? They want to be supported, they want to be recognized, and they need to be held accountable, right? We need to make sure that that accountability is a part of that support and a part of that recognition that they have. And so when we talk about it from a child support standpoint, and I hope, and I think the director might see this as well, is that one of the first things is that how do we approach it, right? And the name that child support has, that's not a name given by Mississippi, that's the name given by DC, Child Support Enforcement. So the word itself already sort of creates an adversarial relationship out the gate. And you're hearing now more programs say child support services, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to serve the family, right? We're not trying to just serve the mother, which is very important. We're not just trying to serve the child, which is very important as well. But we also need to serve that father, because that person will also be a part of that child's life. If the adage is true that hurt people, then it's probably also true that missing fathers produce missing fathers. And so what we need to do, or what we need to think about doing, is how do we incentivize? You brought that up in terms of how do we incentivize, whether it be visitation or fathers being in those individuals' lives. Well, there are a number of ways, right? But here are just a couple. As was stated earlier by the director, there's modifications up and down. It's called right sizing court orders. Oftentimes, you have fathers who would love to be in that child's life, but it's very hard to do something with them on the weekend when you have no discretionary funds to do that. But when they right size a court order, or they find that they're able to downsize a court order properly, then that father has the opportunity to be in that child's life in a meaningful way. But the real way is, how do we skill set those individuals up so that they can be and feel like fathers? If you look at child support cases many, many years ago, probably when I started, Most child support cases, or a high percentage, were from divorces. Not today. Most of them now are from temporary or just a minute ago relationships. So many of these young men are actually thrust into a fatherhood role that they're not prepared for, and many of them may not have even seen before by which to model. And so there's 4 E's that I typically like to talk about in terms of creating the wraparound services, not necessarily just for Maximus, but from the state as well. And those 4 E's are the environment, the education, economics, and emotion. The environment. Is the environment supportive of what that young man or that young father or father-to-be needs? Is it affirming of that life? Education, right? Mr. Anderson talked about that as well, right? Are we training? Are we skilling up? Do they have the education, not just to get a job, but to have a sustainable career or a job that's actually able to sustain them in a way where that little bit of child support, that little bit of check that they get is gone already as soon as the child support payment is there, which then obviously creates visitation issues, underground issues. And then in terms of the economics, right? Are we providing, as this program affirmed and the program that was mentioned earlier, that's what that program is, creating the economic base so that those individuals can sustain the relationship, not just with the child, but with themselves as a man. And then lastly, the emotional part of it. The gentleman on the video talked about how men, and he said black men, but I think it's men, period, sometimes have that sort of, I've got to go through this by myself. But sometimes we need to understand that we all have historical trauma that we might be dealing with, and we have to have a way to be able to address that. Part of Misha's program has trauma-informed training. Actually, if your father's been missing from your life, that might be something that you pass down to your child in one way or the other. I'm not saying that it's always negative. Sometimes I've found that there are individuals whose father was missing. They make it a extra effort to be in their child's life, right? So I'm not saying that it's always a bad thing, but what I'm saying is we have to address that emotional support that those individuals need as well in terms of being what does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be vulnerable? What does it mean to co-parent, right? What does it mean to have a relationship with a child that I didn't necessarily even have a relationship initially with the mom? And so I think those 4 categories, right, we all can address through wraparound services. I commend the Director of Child Support where she said, we go into the community. That's one of the first barriers that we have to remove, the us versus them. That it is time consuming, but it is so very important.
Sure.
If you really want to find out child support policy, go to a barbershop. Now it's going to be wrong, right? They're going to have it all messed up and wrong, but that's where the conversations are going on in the daily community. And so we have to go where people are and we have to meet them where they are. And then they meet us halfway. And so I just say all of that just to say, I think that the wraparound services, the programs that you have in place, the programs that you're thinking about, the potential funding that may be afforded, those are the things that I think will bring us to a place where child support is not looked at in an adversarial or us versus them, but as a support system that we have in other aspects of our government for both families, mothers, children, and the fathers as well. So I just like to, obviously stop there in case there are any questions, because I can get passionate about it. But I just want you all to know that I do think that this is a right track conversation, a right track meeting, a right track approach. Not that you need me to tell you that, but that's why I'm so pleased to be a part of the conversation. And so thank you for the opportunity, Representative.
Thank you. And we'll open up the floor to the committee if they have any questions or any observations during this time. Yes, sir. Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that presentation. It sounds very inspiring. And I just have a question though, and I know you don't want to talk or focus on child support. You're looking at the whole picture. But we really do have to look at that because that's how these mothers are able to take care of their children. And so I see your statistics, and that's what I would really like to see more about from this, where you've had 58% that have graduated out of these 670 fathers. You've had 31% sign co-parenting agreements. you've had 19% secure jobs or higher wages. And then you mentioned 32% have had their child support orders right-sized, whether that's an increase or a decrease. Do you have any statistics on how much recovery in these 18 months that you've been able to obtain for these children?
We have I was trying to, when you were talking, I was trying to pull up PowerPoint deck, that we presented on earlier. And we do have statistics to show that providing child support services in conjunction with the fatherhood. Give me 1 second. Let me try and find that for you, because statistics are important, but specifically with the information that we provided, it is around fatherhood, right? But there is the connection to child support, and we know data and information in that area is important. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna try and find that for you.
And if I could, while she's looking for that, I absolutely agree, Representative, that child support payments and funding and family income is highly important. And nothing that we do, and I hope nothing I said mitigated that. I think what our approach, or at least my concept is that how do we do that in a way that's sustainable? And what I mean by that is you can have a $600 court order that gets paid twice a year, or a $450 court order that gets paid every month on time, right? That child gets to go to the field trip, that child gets to have maybe some of the all of the things that come with being able to be a child these days, right? And so, and I hope that statistics will bear that out, but just as a former child support director and a former child support trainer and caseworker, it is extremely important that that family, that mother or grandmother or whoever's taking care of that child, can count on those payments on a regular basis, because that's how they sustain life. And so nothing that we ever want to do is to mitigate the importance of that. It's just to highlight, how do we bring the father's involvement in that partial as well? And I do think this, in that regard, lastly, that participation in that child's life, to some degree, and it may sound counterintuitive, actually makes that individual want to pay more, because they're seeing the fruits of that labor, if you will. And so I agree with you. We can never neglect the financial obligation that fathers or non-custodial parents have.
Absolutely. So some of the outcomes that we've seen in conjunction with Tennessee was over 14,000 income withholding orders, a 6% increase in collections. And this is through us moving to more, as Dwayne talked about, customer service oriented child support. 3,000 referrals from child support to the Affirm program. And I know we said we enrolled about, we're at about almost 700 fathers getting into the program, but as the director and his team talked about, it is kind of hard to convince the fathers to say, come and be a part of a free comprehensive program. But to add some more context to that, it's because they've never had it before. They don't subscribe to these comprehensive programs. The social safety net was designed for the mothers. So that's a lot of the holdback from the fathers and participating in these programs. We had to do a lot. So we've had over 1,000 modifications. 235 driver license reinstatements, and 245 warrants removed. Now, this is combined. This is fatherhood with child support. These stats are directly, from the child support program.
Okay. Is that just Memphis or Tennessee?
That's just Memphis.
Memphis.
This is just Memphis. Mhm.
And how long did you say that program?
The fatherhood program it's a pilot, as kind of what the director's talking about. It's a pilot. It's been in about a year and a half. We're about a year and a half in.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, sir, Representative.
So I pretty much wholeheartedly agree with the things y'all have said. I think that I think if you make a baby, you ought to pay for it. And I think that's extremely important. At the same time, I think, like Mr. Chairman mentioned earlier, it's of utmost importance, these relationships are. To me, that may be more important. I wonder why the 42% that didn't graduate, or the 69% that didn't sign co-parenting agreements. I wonder what happened there, because my mind keeps going back, and I kind of alluded to this earlier to Mr. Anderson, is, you know, you have the mothers that are angry for whatever reason. And they want the child support, but they don't want the daddy to have anything to do with the children. So how does that work in all this? I mean, you know, to what, how are the logistics on all that? And, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to ask. Do we do something with that? Do we encourage that? Or, you know, seems to me if a dad is trying to go through these programs and yet mama don't want him to have to do anything with the children, is that the 69% that bowed out? You know, why should I do all this? Why should I go get a job? Why should I try to pay child support if I can't see my kids? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and you speak for a lot of fathers, right? So this is where the fatherhood training comes into play, right? Where we work with the father through a design curriculum over the 8 weeks. It's 16 hours, so it doesn't necessarily have to be 8 weeks. But we train the father on how to communicate with his co-parent. We work with him to understand what his specific situation is. And it's going to be a little different for each father, right? But we try to explain to him that and train him on how to talk with the mother. What is the issue, right? We have to get to the root of, as best as we can, of what's causing the mother from keeping you from wanting to have access. And a lot of times it's the relationship. The individual may have walked away from the relationship and it's so sour that the mother doesn't want to see him do anything great. You know, we've heard stuff like, oh, you're going through a program now. Oh, they're helping you, you know, but then we've also seen mothers who come to their father's graduation and 100% support them. So when you look at that 58% number, life happens, to answer your question. A lot of fathers come into the program, they may get a job, there may be something that happens throughout their time that they don't specifically graduate. But we like to think that if they've come to, that means they didn't make it through the full 16-hour, 8-week training. That's what the 58% represents. But many of the fathers come through the program, they get the nuggets, they get what they need, they may not complete, but you know, it still has helped them in some capacity. Yes, we want everyone to complete the fatherhood training, but we try to, as best as we can, to answer your question specifically, we teach the father about how to communicate with the co-parent. We bring the co-parent in. And when we sign the co-parenting agreements, we're trying to get every mother, and we encourage the father that's going through that training, call the mother. Let's try to get her to come in and sit down with you and sign a co-parenting agreement. That's that's pretty much where it is. Though that 32%, we were able to get the mother, and that's revolutionary because this isn't a formal agreement through the courts. This is the mother and the father who may have had a severed relationship have come together to sit down and say, we agree on how to parent our children.
I guess you kind of answered part of my question. I guess that's what my question was. To what extent do you get the mother involved and encourage her as well?
Yes.
This seems to be centered around the fathers and child support, which is good.
Mhm.
But
And
to
we do
get
offer,
mama involved, I think is just as important.
that's a phase we're working on right now, is bringing in, making sure that we're directly and specifically addressing mothers more, because we know that if we don't have the mother's buy-in, this makes all of this harder. But when she can see that the father is taking the steps and is trying and really wants to be a part of that child's life, then it definitely helps. Say something.
Well, yeah, I was just, and I was just gonna say, I think you're right, and that's why we have to have a family-centered approach. when we talked about trauma-informed training, right? That mother may be modeling a behavior that she saw in terms of whether not being able to see her father. And as the director said, we're not clinicians, so I'm not making that ascribing. I'm just saying, just from my years of experience, oftentimes what you see is people are playing out the models that they've had, but there's been no training or there's been no intervention in between by which to redirect that and put it in a more positive and a more child-focused way. Because that, irrespective of what they disagree about, the one thing that they do have in common is that child and or children. And if we can refocus that and put that emphasis there, not only might we not be able to heal the relationship as it relates to towards the child, you never know what may be able to happen, particularly if they've had a relationship and that's been severed. You might be able to create a relationship where that child may not necessarily have an absent father who's in their life. They may have a father that's in their life on a regular basis. And so you're absolutely right. We can, and that's the one thing that I was saying when I talked about wraparound service. If we only focus on the child, that'll get us so far. If we only focus on the mom, we've seen that'll get us a certain amount. Now there's a little bit more central focus on the father, but that too will be limited. It's what you said. It has to be a family-centered and to some degree a community-centered approach. Because part of why that whatever percentage is there's some environmental support that they're not getting. Now the program is new. I would speculate in 3 years that number will go down. You know why? Because it's not new. So when you tell individuals in your environment, oh, I'm in a child support program, first thing they're gonna say is, you're in a child support program? But as time goes on, that doesn't become the anomaly, and more people will now ascribe to that. When something is new, particularly when it's child support and there's that adversarial relationship, there's skepticism. As time goes on, as the relationships build, you come out in the community, you find less and less of that, and you'll find a higher rate of graduation or at least a higher rate of completion.
One last thing, and this may be from Mr. Anderson, I'm not sure, but would a partnership with Maximus I know you said you work with DHS, y'all do. Is that something that would replace the Father Initiative program you have now, or would that be in conjunction with it?
No, I don't think it would replace anything we're already doing. I mean, as I said earlier, we're looking for partners to help us make this program successful. And Maximus sounds like there's a possibility they could be a good partner for us. So we may partner with Maximus, we may partner with other nonprofits or similar companies that are in this space. I want to add one thing to the dialogue that I think is helping a little bit. One of the things that gets forgotten in the child support setting, a lot of the moms are TANF or SNAP recipients. And in Mississippi in particular, we were, all of that money that was generated in the child support program goes back to the state and the feds. It did until a year ago. We eliminated part of the requirement with a pass-through. And the way the pass-through works is right now, the first $100 of child support that we collect goes directly to the custodial parent. It doesn't have any impact. It's not counted as income for purposes of reducing or making them ineligible for SNAP or TANF, but it goes directly to the custodial parent. That's part of what I think is also going to help us continue to build those relationships. A dad who knows not only he's paying child support, but it's going directly to his child. Every state that has a pass-through, whether it's $50, $75, the feds allow you to do up to $200, and we're in the process of converting ours and moving up to the $200 level. Every state that has a pass-through of any kind has shown two statistics without fail. More non-custodial parents pay some child support, and the ones who are paying pay more because of the pass-through. And it's just common sense that if a non-custodial parent, if a parent, let's stop with the labels. If a parent knows that the money he or she is paying into the system goes to their child, they're going to be more likely to pay that child support. And so, we've seen last year over the year 18 months, I guess, that we have operated our $100 a month pass-through, we've been able to push out $250,000 in child support directly to parents. It didn't get recouped by the state. It didn't get recouped by the feds. It went directly to moms. If we move that number up to $200 a month, that means $500,000 will be going directly. And we're in discussions about even, some states are doing what's called a full pass-through, where every dollar of child support that they collect goes directly to the parent. Now, the feds require you, if you do a full pass-through, to pay their share. They won't waive their share above $200 a month. And we're in those discussions. But I think a pass-through is also a very salutary addition to a fatherhood initiative. And I'm pleased that we're there.
I support you on that, and the reason why I would say support you, this is how long it's been since I've been, when I was in child support, it was $50, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's $100. And the reason why that $200 or a higher amount is so important, it gets to the point that you mentioned in terms of adversary relationship. So this individual's paid child support, let's just say $500, right? So the non-custodial parent feels like he's paid $500 towards that child. The mom is receiving 100. So there's a conversation between the two of them in terms of what the needs are. Well, I just paid you 500. I didn't get 500. So part of that adversary relationship, because there's a disconnect, and some of it is educational, informational, between what I've paid, what the government is helping me with as a father with my child, and what the child and or family has received. And so you're so right that pass-through is so important, because it creates a true connection between what I've done, what that contribution is, and it has the potential to change the conversation between the parents.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm on the call, and this is Representative Kareem, and when I get a chance, I like to be recognized.
You can be recognized now. This is the proper time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having this timely discussion about child support, and I've been listening very intensely on everything that's been discussed. And this question is for the room, and it's a couple of questions. And please, I'm gonna start off where the goats can get it. So, what initiates child support?
What initiates it? I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but an identification by a parent, a custodial parent, of a putative parent, the dad generally. We do a paternity test, and if there's an establishment of paternity, then the next step is for us to get a child support order in place. That's what initiates most of our cases. The mom identifies who she believes to be the dad. We do a DNA test to confirm that paternity. And once we confirm the paternity, then we go to the court and seek a child support order at that point. And then that becomes an obligation of the non-custodial parent who's been confirmed by a DNA test as a parent, confirms their responsibility to pay child support.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Now, my next question is, if I receive any kind of those services that you made mention of, SNAP, TANF, does that activate because I'm receiving those services? They have to turn in.
Yes, so that's a common, I'll call it a pain point, because every parent who receives SNAP or TANF has what's called a cooperation requirement under our law. And that means he or she, whoever the parent is that's receiving SNAP or TANF, has an obligation, if there's not a child support order already in place, to identify the putative parent so that we can begin the child support process to get a child support order in place. We have a mandatory cooperation requirement in Mississippi, and if you're receiving SNAP or TANF, you must cooperate. We had until a year ago the same requirement for child care, I'm sorry. We eliminated the cooperation requirement for our child care voucher program so that now moms predominantly who receive a child support voucher are not under the child support cooperation. And we have seen a 10 or 12,000 family increase in our child care program as a result of removing that cooperation requirement. We're serving about 35,000 families, 37,000 families now. Last year, in May of last year, we were serving about 25,000 with our child care program.
Yes, sir. And there are so many horror stories about engaging, just having child support being initiated and the weaponization of child support. When's the last time that legislation or policies have been visited to see the efficiency and what is working and what is not working?
Well, sir, you've asked a question that precedes my involvement in human services because I don't think that issue has been visited, frankly, in the last 10 years or longer. That cooperation requirement has been in place essentially since the TANF statute, I think, was enacted in 1996. Last year, there was a unanimous recommendation from the governor's Early Childhood Advisory Council to eliminate that cooperation requirement for child care. And that's the most recent dialogue we've had about the cooperation issue. And in that context, we also heard many what you referenced, a lot of horror stories. You know, there are instances where a custodial parent doesn't want to identify a non-custodial parent because there's a possibility of domestic violence. Those relationships that you mentioned earlier, those relationships can be really broken. And by identifying the father of a child, that can put mothers at risk. It has put mothers at risk. And that's a tension that exists today. It existed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's a conversation that certainly this body, this committee and the legislature as a whole could have again if it's your pleasure to do that.
Yes, sir. But would the department be willing and receptive to recommendations along those lines as far as really seeing, are the policies working? Are they efficient? Are the children who are the most important and in this matter as far as the subject, are they getting what they're needing through disbursements? I heard about the father initiative. I think is good. I'm listening to Maximus. I think the work they're doing in the Tennessee area is outstanding. But the legislation and the policies, those are the foundation of what we need to look at, because right now we're just working and coloring inside the lines that we're allowed to color in. But we really need to see if what we're doing, is it working, affecting the ones that we're trying to reach.
Yes, sir. I think first thing I want to be very honest about is that we do not at DHS have a reservoir of data to share with the legislature about the kinds of stories you're talking about. Most of what we have is anecdotal stories that we hear one at a time. We don't currently, we don't collect information about, the involvement of domestic violence in a recipient of TANF or SNAP in that regard. We're certainly willing to share with you to the extent we can what stories, and they would have to be obviously, de-identified. We couldn't tell you the specific persons involved, but we certainly would be willing to share with you the types of stories that we've heard. Denise, you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add that that as part of the child support case intake process, the clients are questioned and if during the intake process, it becomes apparent that domestic violence is an issue, we have an indicator on, for that in the case. There's a family violence indicator. And, there's also, and if they do think, that it's going to cause them harm, there is a good cause exception. And they won't be required to have that child support case. We do have that. That's available.
And I apologize if it was taken that I was just solely talking about domestic violence when I said horror stories. I'm talking about stories of fathers who may be contributing to the child, but because one does not think it's sufficient enough because of whatever type of job, they can be given to the household, but they have child support put on them. I'm just talking about the different stories of how things have been taking place and the policies or legislation that supports some of the actions. And again, I say child support to some extent has been weaponized. Children need the support. They need their fathers in their lives. And you all have stated that throughout this conversation today. But it's also a situation that we've been doing some of these, as you stated, Director, since you made mention of 96, and there really hasn't been an overview of the legislation to see if it's working, if it's efficient, are the children getting their needs once child support is submitted, the weaponization of the system. Those things need to really be looked at to have an accurate program. But that's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Representative Kareem, and thank you, Director and Maximus team for answering those questions. This is just the beginning. This is our first hearing on this issue, and we're looking forward, as Director said, we're going to have some more conversations about it. And we're going to, in our closing, we're going to wrap up, but we'll have one more video, and then I'll have some closing remarks so we can get out on time there. We're a little behind.
Thank you.
But this is a great, great conversation. Yes.
Historic, groundbreaking. That's how organizers describe a new program in Memphis that teaches young men how to be better fathers.
It's called FIRM. That stands for A Father's Involvement Really Matters. Introduced by Joyce Peterson here now with a closer look at how the FIRM program works. Joyce.
Joe and Joy, a nonprofit called Families Matter, received a grant from Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's administration to create the AFFIRM program. And the first 6 participants who enrolled this spring graduated tonight.
We're just grateful for all of you that are here.
At the Families Matter headquarters in Midtown, Xavier McLean is one of the first graduates of AFFIRM, a Father's Involvement Really Matters program, an 8-week course that taught Xavier how to be a better father to his 4-year-old son, Jaden.
I know you need. So I gotta get up on my graduate. I gotta show you support.
Xavier and his dad studied parenting curriculum, health education, and financial management. Families Matter Executive Director Carol Jackson says a grant from the Tennessee Department of Human Services funded this first of its kind program in Memphis and Shelby County.
We want to make sure that the success that they gain while being with us is the success that they carry forward, and then they grow well enough that they can actually pay it forward so that others can be involved as well.
Data shows when fathers are involved in their children's lives, kids get better grades at school, have fewer unwanted teen pregnancies, and have a lower risk of living in poverty. And children with involved fathers are less likely to get involved with crime. Getting this diploma, no easy task for Xavier because of transportation issues.
Whatever it took for him to get to our classes, to make sure that he did that. Best for him.
The program offers milestone payments, like $200 to get a job and keep it for at least 30 days. AFFIRM helped Martin get a job at Blue Oval. And Antonio's been promoted from clerk to assistant manager at his job. Graduates also get $500 for completing the fatherhood class and $800 for signing a co-parenting agreement with their child's mother, something Ernest accomplished. These graduates know their hard work is only just beginning.
Goal that I set myself to achieve and I'm gonna strive for it. And I bet you made it feel good to know I'm doing something positive.
Congratulations to all of the graduates. Now, the Affirm classes are offered to men ages 18 to 40 years old. You do have to be a resident of Shelby County and have a pending or established child support order. If you are interested in applying or you know someone and you think this might be a good fit for them, call Families Matter 901-260-8520 and know that case managers will stay in touch with the graduates for 3 years to track the dad's progress and also give them continued support. Live in studio, I'm Joyce Peterson. Joy, back to you.
Great. And so as we close, I'm kind of a next step person. Where do we go next? What do we do next? And as I shared with you all, this is the first, hopefully, of many other hearings that we'll have as we move forward with DHS and other partners to help rectify some of these issues that are plaguing our communities. And we know from a spiritual perspective, we recognize that the family is central to God's plans for our lives. And we are going to have to, and I have to reiterate, we're going to have to somehow get our hands wrapped around this situation. As I said, it is not germane to any race or ethnicity or socioeconomic background, because there are people who have businesses that have children out there that they're not taking care of. So we gotta wrap our minds around it. We gotta actually put some policies in place. We gotta do some work together. Because it's gonna take all of us working together to get it done. But as I said, I want to reiterate Mississippi's role in creating environments that help every parent be present, being involved, and responsible for their child's life. And so our focus in this committee and with those partners that we have here must be to offer those resources and programs that equip parents with the tools they need to co-parent effectively. And so while some parents may never marry, we would hope that that would not be the case, but that is the case. They may never marry, but that in no way diminishes their responsibility to their child. And so we got to make sure that the responsibility is there, and they got to learn how to work together to support their child, and we have to provide them with the resources to be able to do so. Co-parenting is a commitment to setting aside differences. I think Representative Blackwell talked about that, for a shared goal, ensuring that their child has the support and the security that they need to succeed. And I believe Mississippi has the power to do that. The pilot programs that we have now, that Director Anderson and his team spoke about, we can look at other partners to enhance that, because we got to support families on this mission. I want to thank Affirm for being here today. Thank you for the work that you all are doing in Tennessee. I would love to have maybe the next meeting that we have some conversation around how Tennessee and the state of Tennessee supported this Affirm project. Because policy without any money is just a sheet of paper. So we gotta put some resources behind it. But we have to also provide the guidance and the training and the resources that is needed. And so I want to thank the committee again. Thank you all for taking out of your time to be here today. Thank Director Anderson and his team. I want to thank you all. We're going to looking forward to having some more conversations. I also want to thank our committee counsel, Ms. Una, for being here and helping, as well as our committee assistant, who has done a great job. I want to thank, I think she was in here, I want to thank Coretta. Oh, there she is, okay, for working with us and helping us set up, and Ms. Deborah for being, working with Ms. Lisa to make this happen today. We have to work together. And so finally, I want to thank all of you, those who are joining us online. Thank you for your commitment to Mississippi's families and our collective efforts to create a brighter future for the next generation. Not just for us, but it's always about the next generation. Thank you all so much. And as you all see on the tables, let us not forget as we close out Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Some of us are adorned in our pink today. Y'all looking mighty good. And let us also recognize that breast cancer is not just for women. There are also men who suffer with this debilitating disease. Thank you all once again. And is there a motion? All right, we're gonna rise in the report. Thank you all.